What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, episode 100, giving you your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. I am not Dave Martinson. I am Pat Sheehan with my co-host Dave Martinson. We were about to switch it up today. Man, I was too excited in that intro, but it's our last podcast of the year, our 100th episode since we started. Feels good.
Yeah, well, we're gonna post this in 2018, so
Yeah.
The mysteries of pre-recording. But yeah, our last pod of 2017. It's a good year.
Mm-hmm.
Good year of content. Hashtag content.
Yeah, and if you've enjoyed our content that we've given to you for free, please hit subscribe on YouTube. Go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod and help us out with a review on iTunes. Get the pod wherever you can and share it with your friends. Help us grow.
Thank you
for all your support this year. We're going to be talking about the year that was 2017 in movies, and we have a lot to talk about. Why don't we start with the trends like we have with every best of the year pod so far? What was the trend that stood out most to you about film this year, the film industry?
Yeah, well, I think one of the most reported on trends, something that's got a lot of burn online especially, was the poor box office, especially in the summer. We talked about it a little bit in the fall, but it was the worst August in like 10 years or so.
Yep.
Just in general, it was down, year over year. The fall, buttressed by It being a surprise hit, and then, stalwarts like Thor and Coco, Justice League, and Star Wars helped kind of catch it up. So 2017 year isn't done yet at the time of recording, but 2017 isn't like that far off from 2016. It actually could probably still catch it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, overall, it was worrisome for sure, especially the summer where you're supposed to have all your big tentpoles and money makers.
Yeah, it was a super up and down year. Like I was trying to think about what were the movies that really like caught the year, and at the beginning you had Get Out as a surprise movie that really like captured a hold of the population's interest. And then you had Logan, which everybody knew about.
Yeah,
big movie. You had Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm.
Big movie. And then it was kind of a lull until Wonder Woman, it really felt like. And then after Wonder Woman, there were some movies during the summer that were good and entertaining. Logan Lucky, Baby Driver. But you didn't really have another hit until It. And that was really what saved the box office up to that point. And then it's been like one after the other since then. I mean, Thor, Justice League, which made a lot of, it was a big movie, brought in a lot of money, not necessarily a good movie. Star Wars, obviously, and just all the Oscar movies that have come out too have helped the box office. But a really up and down year for the box office. How much of this do you think is affected by just the way that we take in entertainment now, like streaming services? On-demand movies, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is exactly one half of it, is that just there's more competition for people's time. As podcasters, we understand that, trying to get people to listen to us talk during the week is a tough ask, Everyone has things to consume, and there's a lot of competition for everything. And movies are not the end-all, be-all as much as they once were. Peak TV, we talked about throughout the year, of course. Check out our best TV episode, soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod. But that was 3 weeks ago. But there's just more competition, and some people are willing to see less movies in theater, especially as ticket prices continue to remain at a high price. And the whole let's wait for it to go on Netflix, or we'll wait for it to get on demand. We'll just rent it, the three of us, and it's much cheaper. So some, unless you're really motivated to see something in the theater, people seem to be more inclined to wait these days. But you're still seeing movies that are well received bring people in. Get Out, even Split came out around the same time. Good movies bring people in. Baby Driver, another great success. So the other half of the coin, I think, is that audiences have less tolerance for mediocrity or certainly bad movies because there's more competition for our time. Why would I spend money to go see something that I know is not that good? Rotten Tomatoes and Cinema Score have such high, profiles these days. They get so much attention. Heck, they're even marketed when they get good marks. Mm-hmm. There's all these reasons that tell you not to go see something. that, the combination of time, money, and quality might motivate people not to go. So I think overall, especially, I mean, you saw this last year. Remember, like, The Legend of Tarzan came out and didn't do that well. Why was that? It wasn't that good. The Dark Tower this year, it was, the biggest movie on paper for August.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, overall, quality is definitely a big part of it too. And I think you'll see, moving into 2018, Black Panther is coming out in February, and Aquaman's coming out in December. The calendar, and it was a September smash this year. The calendar is being more diversified as people are trying to pick out, studios trying to pick out their spots where they can try and capture the audience. But competition is tough. I think that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, we were going back and forth a little bit on Twitter about this yesterday, but there really is there's such minimal attention like that you can give to something. And I think a lot of times people, when they come home, want to just watch whatever is easiest. They don't want to think about, all right, I just got home, now I have to get in my car, drive somewhere else, go sit in the theater, drive back home, spend, I don't know, $20 on tickets and water, So it's a tough aspect, I think, sometimes, which is why the quality wins out. But it's easier. Like, I rented Good Time recently because I wanted to watch it before we talked about it this week. It was $6 and I have it for 30 days. I can watch as many times as I want. I can watch it again. I can watch it on my own couch. It's such a easier experience to do something like that, though you're not experiencing it with the rest of everybody else.
Right. Well, and that brings me to another point. In the case of Good Time was not in the theaters that long. Good Time was a very cheap movie to make. So Good Time is not depending on a big box office return. The other, you look at the hits this year, superhero movies continue to dominate, continue to make all the money. Animated movies continue to be very reliable, very bankable. Just kids movies, there's this consistent demand for those. And then, apart from that, what seems to have been bankable recently, the Disney remakes, nostalgia, just playing right nostalgia in that. But other than that, it's the hits we keep seeing are these cheap movies that are greenlit because they're not a risk. Get Out and Split this year, big examples. We're seeing less, like Logan Lucky's movies that cost like $50 million because, you see that those movies, it's hard to get people to go all in on stuff that there was absolutely a demand for, in 2005. The mid-level movie. Think of 2016, The Nice Guys. Well-received movie, mid-level movie, totally bombed at the box office. Why was that? It's tough to get people to show up for that kind of stuff. So unless it truly, gets the buzz like a Get Out, because it's so excellent, generally the more expensive movies are the ones that are going to win out, just because people are more tuned into them.
Yeah, and we've been talking a lot about like A24, how they just absolutely killed it this year. A lot of highly acclaimed and well-reviewed movies. I think it just makes more sense to either go in the direction of something small and hope that it's a hit and hope that people will pick up on it after the fact, after it's not in theaters, or to just go super big and just throw as much money as you can at it to get a huge draw, like Star Wars, for example, something like that, which is just huge budget, looking for a huge return. I think they needed like $800 million just to like break even on their investment or something like that, was
right.
what I heard.
High production because intense marketing. Yeah, that's what Justice League wasn't profitable. You look at the money it actually made. It's not a profitable movie because the thing costs $300 million before you factor in any marketing,
Right.
So I think, if you're trying to talk like long-term macro stuff, blockbusters probably should cost less, if you want to have more successful blockbusters. The Fox deal, Fox it hasn't gone through, of course, but it's been agreed upon. Fox wants to get out of the entertainment business, specifically making content. They're a major studio, or soon will have been a major studio, but they're having a tough time competing and scaling up. And when you give all that IP to Disney, the ones who can't really fail right now, it's going to be tough to compete in the blockbuster space.
Yeah, well, and you think about, like, we were talking about streaming services, and Netflix this year dropped 3 movies that I think are worthy of any top 10 list: Okja, The Meyerowitz Stories, and Mudbound. You can market those so much easier, and for so and much cheaper than you can a movie that you need to go to the box office. You just put it on the screen when you sign into your account. It's right there. You see it. You know it's coming. It's definitely going to be a changing landscape in the next couple of years. And we'll definitely have to keep our eye on it. It's interesting the role Movie Pass plays into all of this, because you think about we've been talking about the home like movie theater experience, and like being able to see movies that were just released at home, but you have to pay for that, like a subscription, like
the streaming room, right? Yeah, it's high cost.
Movie Pass is basically like a direct way to like fight back against that, and that's why I think so many theaters buy into it, because they profit off of selling extra tickets when you bring people along. They profit off of food. They profit off of all like the little pieces that are added into it to get people in the theaters. And I just don't know if Movie Pass can be able to do it, but I'm going to enjoy the hell out of it as long as we have it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, what was AMC's big gripe when Movie Pass got all the big press when they dropped the price? It was that it's going to condition people to want to pay less and less for movie tickets, and then when Movie Pass inevitably fails, it will negatively affect the business overall, because more or less people be buying tickets full price again, which is I think it's a fair criticism. You just got to hope Movie Pass can stay alive, because Movie Pass is paying full price to the theater, so they're not losing any money right now. It's kind of a long-term principle
right
at the moment. But yeah, Movie Pass certainly has I was hitting a career high in times at the theaters before Movie Pass, but I mean, I've since gone nearly 20 times in 2 months, so
it's ridiculous.
It's pretty great.
Any other year-end trends that you wanted to mention before we move on?
Yeah, so I mean, we've already been talking about it, but you mentioned A24 and Blumhouse. They're obviously they've been killing it in the horror game. They make horror movies at a specific price. They know how to market it. And they know what's a good horror movie, and they have that lane down pat. Split and Get Out are from Blumhouse. Annapurna, though, they got the U.S. distribution rights to James Bond. It was previously with Sony. Warner was in the mix, but MGM and the Bond, Eon, they went with Annapurna, and that's nuts. So good for them, because that's a small distributor that's less than 10 years old, getting a huge win in the blockbuster space. International distribution still to be determined, so that's really cool. Yeah, and then you thinking about Netflix, they just released their first quote blockbuster film, Bright, with Will Smith and Joel Edgerton, directed by David Ayer, written by Max Landis, and it's not good, not well received at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Depends on Netflix never released their data, but how many people will have seen that? They already commissioned a sequel, so despite all the negative buzz, so will Netflix truly be able to continue to make movies at that scale? Because a lot of the movies they've been putting out thus far, Joe Swanberg or War Machine or Brad Pitt, the movies you mentioned before, they're all cheap. Will Netflix and truly get into the blockbuster space? Remains to be seen, because Amazon, in the same boat, they more or less have been putting out smaller, later fare.
Well,
so,
they got that. They got that De Niro and Al Pacino movie coming out. Supposedly, I think it's either next year or the year after. So they got to make it work. So that movie's gonna be like
Irishman, yeah,
huge, at least huge budget. I don't know if it will be successful. Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting year, and it's gonna be, like I said, it's gonna be interesting to like see how the landscape changes in terms of how people are consuming movies, and how theaters respond and try to get people in. Why don't we jump into our list, though? I know that I know that you've seen a ton of movies. I've seen like the low 20s this year, and I had a bunch of honorable mentions. I guess I wanted to start with maybe like the big ones that I decided not to put on my list, but I had a hard time leaving these ones off. My top 10 was not easy. I left off Star Wars, Spider-Man, and Thor, which Spider-Man and Thor I had originally lumped together. I was going to cheat a little bit and do like a top 11 and just throw them in as a tie, but they were all excellent movies. I think in terms of what I was looking for, and what I noticed in the trend of my list, was looking at the stories that I found were more moving and more personal to me. Something that I found to be more interesting was the human stories this year, rather than like the large superhero outer space type stories. And that's why they didn't make my list, but I really enjoyed those, and I have a feeling probably more than the human stories, I'll be coming back to those ones as rewatchables, just
right,
in terms of excellence, I didn't think that they quite made my list. What was something that was an honorable mention for you?
Yeah, I had Thor at 15. So Thor was definitely close for me. Yeah, so I've been seeing a lot of the Oscar bait recently. So just missing my list, 11 and 12, I, Tanya and The Shape of Water.
I can't wait
I,
to see
Tanya, yeah, I, Tanya is really, really fun. There's some tonal stuff that is kind of weird to wrap your head around that I don't want to spoil, but it has to do with Tanya Harding's upbringing. There's domestic violence plays a big part in her, her story, but the movie's kind of a dark comedy, so it's kind of doesn't always work with the performances. Margot Robbie and Allison Janney is absolutely amazing. It's just a really enjoyable film. The Shape of Water from Guillermo del Toro. Got our guy Michael Shannon in it, of course, but Sally Hawkins.
Yeah, he was basically reprising his role from Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah, of course, just being a sleazeball, really. And Sally Hawkins is great. She plays a mute.
Yeah,
it's interesting because The Shape of Water, without saying anything, I just think it's kind of muted. No pun intended, despite the fact the character's a mute. Like I just like you get the main point, you get the themes by the end, you understand, but it just seems like it could have been bigger. It's tough to say without spoiling, but it's not to say it wasn't what I expected. I just think it was a little more reserved than I thought it would be. Like it could have been weirder.
Oh, it definitely could have been weirder, but it came in at number 10 on my list actually. So
nice. Okay,
to jump in. I thought the score and just the way it was shot was absolutely fantastic. Shout out Richard Jenkins, who I thought was fantastic in this movie. And I think the reason I put it at number 10 on my list is because I was thinking about I talked a lot about moments in the past reviews, like parts of songs or TV episodes that really grabbed me. That scene where she finally is able to speak and it goes into like a nice dance routine. It was just such a like wonderful and like joyous moment. And I think the story in terms of not only the way it portrayed someone with a disability and a woman with a disability was
in the 50s
really,
at that.
Yeah. And I think it was the early 60s, but regardless, doesn't really matter. It also, I think it was a really nice story about like finding your place, the extent you'll go for love, and just like acceptance of diversity in a lot of ways, and not being afraid of others, and especially with the sort of year that it's been politically. I thought like ending the year on this kind of note was a really beautiful message. So it made number 10 on my list, but I don't blame you. It was a stacked year, so being in your honorable mentions makes a lot of sense. Before we move on, I just wanted to shout out 2 other movies that didn't make my list, but totally could have. They're both Netflix movies, Okja and the Meyerowitz Stories, which I mentioned before. Adam Sandler and the Meyerowitz Stories is fantastic. And I think just for that fact, it could have made my list. I haven't really liked the Adam Sandler movie that much in a long time. And Okja was like so moving, and it almost made me become a vegetarian. So pretty definitely check Okja out and the Meyerowitz Stories. I mean, Ben Stiller's in that one too, and so is Dustin Hoffman. It's a stacked cast.
Good directors from both those movies.
The Safdie brothers, and Okja actually didn't write down who that was, but
no, it's the guy who made Snowpiercer.
Oh, right.
I know it's not the Safdies, it's Noah Baumbach.
Right. No, sorry, I was getting it confused with Good Time, because I saw both those very recently. So what were your other honorable mentions before we move on?
Oh yeah, just quickly, Coco from Pixar actually is one of the strongest Pixar entries. Really moving, especially at the end. Pleasantly surprised with that. The Disaster Artist is really funny, really well done. James Franco, between that and The Deuce, great year for him.
Having a moment.
Oh, for sure. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Excellent acting. You get a lot of nominations for that. Frances McDormand, Sam Rockwell, even Woody Harrelson. Quite good. I'm kind of rooting against it in the Oscars. There's been a few early award shows where it's done really well, and at the expense of other movies. So I'm it's not my pick per se. I think the acting's really good, but the story kind of takes a downturn in Act 3. So yeah, but I mean, a lot of people have it like top 5. So it's tough to argue with it. Wind River, really liked. That's another movie that had a short release in August. Didn't make a whole lot of money, but Jeremy Renner really good in that. And then lastly, All the Money in the World. I just saw really interesting story about the Getty kidnapping, and Christopher Plummer does a really good job, despite the fact that he wasn't in the movie until last month. So yeah, it's quite enjoyable.
Yeah, that's the first like entertainment piece that's really, I think, been affected by these sexual misconduct things. I mean, they had to basically reshoot that in a month.
Yeah, a month before release, they did all the reshoots in 9 days. So very expensive proposition getting everyone back and rushing it through. But really, Scott's a pro in that regard, and the movie was not hurt by it.
That's great to hear. What was your number 10? What did make your list?
Right. So, I was toying with Tania and Shape of Water for number 10, but I ended up sticking to my guns with what I originally had with number 10. And that's Baby Driver. From Edgar Wright, came out in June, and the reason I went with Baby Driver, I just think it's definitely the most rewatchable of the 3, and it's such a enjoyable ride, no pun intended. And but it also, the presence of music in the movie, we talked about in our review in the summer. Check that out. The presence of music is so unique and so refreshing, and Ansel Elgort, surprisingly, was a good part of the movie. Yeah. So I'm just a big fan of it in terms of it's very old school action movie vibe, something that's not that common these days. It was a little expensive, but it fits the middle movie vibe, something that we don't have that much anymore. So I'm happy the movie was a success. Obviously, Edgar Wright has a reputation as a unique director, and it certainly shines through in that movie. And despite Kevin Spacey's presence in the film, I think overall it's really great.
Yeah, I had it on my honorable mention list. I was hoping you'd talk about it. The soundtrack's probably my favorite soundtrack of the year. It was very unique, but the movie was just a lot of fun, and it left me thinking about it a lot more than I expected it to, especially because Ansel Elgort, I don't think many people had high hopes for him.
Right.
So definitely good to see. Number 9 on my list was The Lost City of Z. So this is a movie I saw at home. I didn't see it in the theaters, but I don't think it took away from the experience at all. James Gray was excellent as director in this. Charlie Hunnam, who, I mean, what an up and down year for him. He had a huge flop in King Arthur, and then comes back with this, which I don't know if he probably won't get a Best Actor nom, but he was phenomenal in this. I come back to the scene of him in the room with all the men, saying why he needs to go back on this thing, and
best scene in the movie.
Fantastic, dude, just electric. And also Robert Pattinson's gonna be on my list twice, but what a year for him.
Yes,
he was fantastic in this movie.
Right. So Robert Pattinson, you have to admire his ability to, and his choices to step back and not be a leading man for a little bit. Obviously he was in Harry Potter briefly, and then of course the co-lead of Twilight forever. So he was very famous for not the best reasons, acting wise. But then a few years ago in The Rover, but then this year in Good Time and Lost City of Z, just being basically unrecognizable in terms of what you expected from him as an actor. And it's really really commendable. I don't have enough good things to say about him. Yeah, Lost City of Z came in at number 20 for me. I also, like you, watch it recently. It's on Amazon Prime, so definitely check it out. For free, of course. It's funny because we talked about seeing that movie back in, I believe, April, and we never made time to go see it, and most people didn't. It made under 10 million, but I think it should have a second life because it's getting a lot of good press. Yeah,
definitely. And it's an exploration movie, and I think the way it explores not only the indigenous lands at the time, which, I mean, the costume design and setting is amazing, but also just the way it explores this person, Percy Fawcett, was just phenomenal. So I can't say enough about this movie.
Yeah, what's cool about it is that it's an adventure movie without the swashbuckling, fights and Indiana Jones stuff, which is great, of course, but it's not that kind of movie. It's more reserved and realistic, I guess you could say. And then interesting thing, actually, when I was reading about Fawcett, the real story, of course. Apparently T.E. Lawrence of Arabia, asked to go on expedition with him in the Amazon, but was refused.
Wow.
So interesting, little tidbit there.
Definitely interesting. Fun facts. Dave's spitting the facts here, folks. Number 9 for you. What do you got?
Number 9 for me was another movie that I saw on a streaming service, Mudbound. We talked about it recently.
Mudbound. That's a tough end, dude. I keep coming back to that last scene that we talked about when we reviewed SoundCloud.com/nostalgiapod, and like makes my stomach turn every time I think about it.
Yeah, it's much like 12 Years a Slave and a lot of other movies about the plight of African Americans in the pre-modern times. Not the most fun movies to rewatch again, but that being said, I think it was definitely worthy. I thought about, do I want to take this out for like Tania or something? But no, I again stuck to my guns. I think the performances, Garrett Hedlund, Jason Mitchell, and Mary J. Blige especially, are great. Dee Rees as a new director, the touch is great. The period piece setting works really well, and I like the themes. I really reject A.O. Scott's comments in the Times about it being just about white guilt. I don't think that's something you should think about going into it. I think it's absolutely worth everyone's time. And I don't think it's going to get a lot of Oscar love. Might get some noms, but yeah, I hope everyone watches it because Netflix really wants it to be a award darling. So yeah, what'd you think?
I mean, Mudbound was I think you hit the nail on the head. The performances were just fantastic. Jonathan Banks as like the most believable racist and most like hateable person on earth was I love Jonathan Banks going to that movie. I left being like, I don't know about this guy so much. I mean, he's fantastic as Mike Ehrmantraut.
It was a little too believable.
But no, overall, yeah, I think the fact that it made me feel the way that it made me feel is a good thing, and I think that it's very deserving of a top 10 list. I think for me, my experience with this movie was a little bit affected by the fact that I was at home. I think it would have been an amazing experience in theaters, but I think overall, as a film and just as a story, it's just wonderful. And like you said, the performances just can't really say enough. What was number 8 for you? I'm wondering what's going to be on this list here.
Yeah, so number 8 is probably the first quote Oscar bait movie I saw. Saw this in early November, and that's The Florida Project from Sean Baker. Sean Baker has been making movies a long time, but he really busted it out in 2015 for Tangerine, which was got a lot of press for being shot on an iPhone 5 or iPhone 6 or something. And but yeah, The Florida Project is man, it's a really powerful film. It's expertly crafted. It's about poor children and single moms living in hotels in Orlando, Florida, right next to Walt Disney World. And this is interesting because this kind of ties back into our earlier discussion about trends. This movie wouldn't have been able to get made without Willem Dafoe being the one big star to help sell the movie and market the film. And Willem Dafoe's been getting a lot of best supporting actor attention for good reasons. His performance is really cerebral, and but really the breakouts of the movie are Brooklyn Prince, the 7 or 8 year old girl, Mooney, who plays Mooney. She's she's a really sassy, charismatic little kid, and I'm hoping she stays acting as she continues to grow up because she clearly has it. And then also her mom, played by Bria can't read my handwriting, Venalti. And it's funny because Sean Baker found her on Instagram as she was not an actor. Again, this just like the kid, it's their first movies, and she's since hung out with Drake and stuff, and it's so shout out her, clearly winning. But overall, the movie, especially as it comes to a conclusion, it'll definitely take you to a place that few other movies can this year. It's already kind of waned its run at the theaters, so it might be hard for you to check out these days, but definitely do, because you're going to hear about it a lot as Oscar season ramps up.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe, better or worse performance than him as the Green Goblin?
Better.
Although you can't knock those Tobey Maguire. Yeah. No, that's one that I meant to get to. I actually planned to get to, but circumstances stopped me, which I won't go into on the pod. But
you didn't have Movie Pass.
I definitely have that on my list. I do not have Movie Pass Center. I would have just snuck away and done it. Number 8 for me, a movie that we reviewed on the podcast, Blade Runner 2049. Denis Villeneuve.
Villeneuve.
Ah, fuck.
Come on, guy. That's number 6 for me.
I was going to ask, but it had to have made your list. You know, when I think about this movie, I have like 3 very vivid memories of it. The ending with Ryan Gosling laying on that thing and basically being like the original Ray's parents were nobody like moment of the year.
Fuck yes, dog.
The number 2 was just like that scene where he's on that island, or when he's like, or not island, but that planet. He's trying to find Harrison Ford's character, and it's just like all yellow and like sandy.
That planet's Earth, by the way. That was Las Vegas.
That planet was unrecognizable to me. The third part that was just the score, like it stuck with me so much, dude. And like it was such a masterclass just in filmmaking and using other parts other than the acting, which was phenomenal too. Ryan Gosling killed it. I thought Jared Leto was great, and Harrison Ford reprising his role was fantastic. Overall, just a really wonderful sequel. So
yeah, I incredibly agree. Absolutely.
Incredibly
agree. I think the cinematography, it's probably it's definitely the best cinematography of the year in my opinion. The colors, the use of colors is so good. Roger Deakins hopefully will finally get his Oscar after like 15 noms for best cinematography. I'm worried he'll lose to Dunkirk. But and Blade Runner 2049 is interesting because it cost like a blockbuster and was marketed as such, yet it underperformed at the box office due to a long running time. And actually probably wasn't marketed as a blockbuster. The marketing was very mysterious to get the cards close to the chest. So in that sense, it was kind of underserved. But I think it's a little like in the 90s domestically, 90 million. So that's not great considering how much it cost. But that being said, it's the critical acclaim ultimately is what matters because Denis has his reputation on the line, and he's on perhaps the best movie run of any acting director right now. But he's like 5 deep now, and he's gonna be tackling Cleopatra and Dune next. He's fucking ambitious as hell. I fucking love it. But yeah, Ryan Gosling's character, the arc he goes on in the film is really powerful. I really like the themes of the movie. I think it'll definitely sit with me over time as the plot maybe get hazy, but the colors will definitely remain, and the feeling watching the movie won't go away.
Absolutely. What was what did you do 8? Did you do number 7 yet?
I didn't do 7.
Let's do 7 then for you.
Number 7 was Logan. James Mangold.
Number 3 on my list.
Nice. Yeah. Again, that's another movie that I initially had probably as high as 3. And then I had to rejig the list a little bit. I decided to have Blade Runner just ahead of it. But Logan obviously shows what you can do in the superhero genre. It's obviously, we said that when we reviewed the movie, everyone said that, but it's true. Not only is it rated R, but it's such a personal, character-driven superhero film that exists within a universe, the Fox X-Men universe, but isn't hamstrung or reactive to that universe, It doesn't show you the fact that Charles probably killed all the X-Men. It just kind of alludes to it, and on top of that, it's such a fitting send-off for a character, Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine since 2000. It's been such a long run. And the fact that he could go on such a high note was amazing. And then, of course, Daphne Keane, another young actor in her first real movie, just absolutely steals every scene she's in. And then when that scene where she finally actually opens her mouth and speaks, she's talking mile a minute in Spanish. Man, what a What a fantastic film. I'm so happy that James Mangold finally was given the chance to really make the Wolverine movie he wanted to, because his last effort, The Wolverine, which was with Hugh Jackman, of course, but it was the one in Japan, that kind of had the studio coming in at the end. That's where it had that like dumb fight with the samurai robot thing at the end. So they finally were given, that the training wheel's taken off. Hey, it's okay. Make the movie you want to make. And I'm glad that they finally got that chance, because the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, and I think that was why it was so high up on my list. I have one other superhero movie on this list that we'll be getting to in a second, but I think, the superhero genre in a way I think can become very stale and very, just like it basically just becomes the same thing. Like there's three parts. There's a villain that you don't really know much about. Like the hero, like you meet him in the beginning, goes through this arc, feels like he's not going to be there, then he comes through.
Yeah, you know what someone means when they say a Marvel movie.
It's formulaic. This was totally different, and I think what this means, and we talked about this in the pod before, but what this means for superhero movies moving forward is that you can take more risks and you can try to tell different stories about superheroes. And Deadpool was this way in a sense. I guess Suicide Squad also was this way in a sense, but this is
the one still that PG-13 really, though.
Right, but this one really pulled it off, and this one I think is what will lead superhero movies to gain a lot more legitimacy moving forward. And this is definitely going to get some nominations. I mean, I could see Hugh Jackman getting a nomination for this. Maybe. I mean, he was pretty good. I mean, there's been a lot of really good male performances this year, but
yeah, I don't think he sneaks in. He's worthy. If the class is expanded. I'm trying to think, like, is there something they could realistically get, like, even nominated for? I don't know.
Maybe like
it's hard, especially for a movie earlier in the year,
like screenplay adaptation or something like that.
Adapted screen. It is an adapted screenplay. Old Man Logan comic. Yeah, maybe that'd be absolutely awesome if they could get that.
So I mean, I just think it was just such a well done movie, and for being so early in the year and sticking with me this much, I had to put it that high up. While I'm speaking, I'm just going to jump right into my next movie on the list, which was Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, again, talking about the superhero genre. I was looking for something different. I think I even talked a little bit about on the pod in the past how feeling like superhero fatigue. Like there's always superhero movie out. I always had to be thinking about this new superhero. Wonder Woman was not only a huge win for DC, which I mean they needed that more than anything else this year. They need Justice League to be good, which it was. We talked about it was, but
the production timeline's different. It's the Wonder Woman DC movie that just happened to come out afterwards.
Exactly, but I think on a larger level, creating a female superhero that people can actually latch onto, and people said it was well received and really liked. Patty Jenkins was phenomenal. It pushed feminism forward. It made Chris Pine like have the year of his fucking life. Like it was a fucking awesome movie. Just as a whole, it was uplifting and fun, and I'm so glad that Wonder Woman came out because I think it's going to also help pull different types of stories. I mean, they're talking about the one with Batgirl and like Harley Quinn having
Gotham City Sirens.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of different stories being told because Wonder Woman is successful. I think that gives a lot more leash for those kind of stories.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think that everything we talk about for Wonder Woman is kind of about what Wonder Woman represents, what it means, how it makes people feel. It's not really about like the film itself,
Mm-hmm.
Like at the end of the day, it has the CGI villain,
right.
CGI end of the third act, but we forgive it because everything else is so strong. We like the rest of it so much, which is fine. So I had that as my number 2 superhero movie, but after Thor, I think I like Thor for personal enjoyment more, but obviously Wonder Woman's much more influential.
So where was it on your list overall?
It was 19.
19? So it was third because Logan, right?
For me. Oh, sorry, third, yeah. Logan was 7, Thor was 15, and Wonder Woman was 19.
Yeah, and something else I just didn't even mention, but Gal Gadot, I mean, is fucking going to be huge. She's phenomenal, and I see her just dominating moving forward. So shout out to her. But you are right. I think when people talk about why this movie is important, it's not so much the movie itself, but what it represents. Definitely.
Right. Which is fine. You know, it's well and good. It's well deserved.
What was your number 7? Oh, you said Logan, right?
Yep. 7 was Logan. 6 was Blade Runner 2049. Number 5 was Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Star Wars is the biggest media franchise, you know, known to man, right? Mm-hmm. By far the shrewdest business move of all time when they bought it from when Disney bought Lucasfilm from George Lucas for $4+ billion.
Shrewd.
Crazy. They've made over just about $4 billion at the box office between the 3 movies they've released so far: Force Awakens, Rogue One, Last Jedi, and that's not including toys and everything from the cartoons, everything else. So, I mean, what a colossal acquisition, you know? Just like again, it's ridiculous that it was only $4 billion when the developers of Candy Crush King were sold for like $16 billion, you know?
Yeah.
Fucking nuts. Or WhatsApp, something that's only going to make money from ads, was sold for around 15. So what a shrewd move. But anyway, the fact that The Last Jedi changes expectations for Star Wars, it takes everything you think you know about the franchise and how the franchise works, how the storytelling in the franchise works, and it kind of turns it on its head to great effect. It's the first Star Wars movie to truly have the touch of an excellent director. We talked about Rian Johnson's, choices in our review, which of course, check that out. It's like a 40-minute review of Star Wars, so we had a lot to expound upon. But that scene with Laura Dern in the hyperspace scene, when it goes black and white, truly a majestic scene that only some directors would even think of pulling off. But because Star Wars is so influential, and because we know Star Wars is not going to go away anytime soon, especially even on the big screen, it's not going to let up. Star Wars cannot be the same old thing it always was. And while some people just kind of feel betrayed about the treatment of Luke Skywalker as a character, they don't like that decision, I think overall, this was the right move to make, given the fact that these movies are not going to stop. And the fact that Lucasfilm and Disney had the foresight to understand that they cannot let Star Wars get stale. They cannot let the fatigue happen, that they took this chance and made a movie that is so great for so many different reasons. Whenever we talk about Star Wars, it had to be on my list.
Mark Hamill himself said, if they had just made Luke this like all-knowing, wise
teacher,
Jedi,
or we've seen it before, right?
So do something different. And he, if Luke Skywalker, even though he voiced initial concerns, is on board with what Rian Johnson did, I have to be on board with him, man. Right. In the movie we talked about for 40 minutes, like you said, it was great.
Yeah. And like one final note, Force Awakens was an excellent success for bringing people back. And the main critique was that it was a rehash of A New Hope. Now when something is the antithesis of a rehash, you're still mad. Like,
what do people want?
Fucking mind.
Like, what do you really want? So I'm just gonna run through a couple of my lists for sake of time here. Get Out was number 6 on my list. Jordan Peele's directorial debut. Daniel Kaluuya and Allison Williams, both fantastic in it. This is the type of movie I think, which is hard for me to say because I don't really watch movies that much. You need to watch a couple times because after the ending and after you see how it twists, the movie's totally different probably on second watch. Wow. Also, I watched the video with Jordan Peele talking about all these like Easter eggs that he put in there that I really want to go back and watch now because it's so deep and like detailed. Overall, just a really intense movie, and I was definitely like clutching onto my couch watching it, but it's probably the best like scary movie I've seen in a long, long time. And just for the fact that this was such a small movie that came out of nowhere to be like a juggernaut in the zeitgeist is noteworthy. Jordan Peele is going to be a fucking great director moving forward.
I'm going to see it at some point just because I know I need to have it for my critical palate. But I do I loathe horror movies, so I've kind of been dreading the watch. So, which is why I felt okay not seeing it before we do the list, because I knew I probably wouldn't have it in my top 10 anyway. But I will see it at some point.
I'm just going to jump into number 5. I think you have that on your list. Good Time.
Number 4 for me.
Finally talking about the Safdie brothers, man. This is basically just Robert Pattinson, Russell Westbrooking his way through the film and just being a force and so like subtle. He doesn't. I mean, he talks a lot in the beginning, but I feel like as it goes on, he's just more and more inside his head. And for that to happen to a character, it becomes really tough to like portray that. But he does such a good job of just like being ruthless, but also like scared and like running into like dead end after dead end, and he's just fantastic, dude. I can't really say enough about his performance.
Yeah, it's such a visceral crime movie, I mean, I think it's probably a seminal New York crime movie, honestly. It's so physical, the whole movie, the style of filmmaking. The Safdies obviously really bust down the scene with this, and I'm really curious to see what they do next now that they'll get a little more money for the next film. But man, Good Time, another success from A24, just killing it. And this, man, it's just such an engrossing experience to watch the movie.
Yeah, and also like the soundtrack that they had with it was like this like 80s like high-pitched guitar, like screeching tone, just like brought a level of like stress to the movie that I think really added to it. So A24, like you said, continuing to kill it. It was number 4 on your list, so I'll jump to my number 4 as well. Movie, I don't know if it's gonna make your list. The Big Sick. Number
21 for me.
I liked it. Michael Showalter directing. Kumail Nanjiani, Ray Romano, Holly Hunter.
Yep.
All getting different times to shine. Say this was we're talking about those like personal stories that really like grabbed me this year. This movie made me laugh, probably some of the hardest I have all year, and it also like made me very emotional at points, and really like putting myself in that situation is just very stressful and heartbreaking. It also does a really good job of looking at cultural differences and the roles that those play in relationships and in grief and in growing up. And for this being Kumail's like first like leading role, I thought he was phenomenal. And we've seen him on Silicon Valley, but to see him kind of be able to carry a movie like this was encouraging. Also, Bo Burnham plays one of his friends, which was also really funny in this.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely a movie I recommend checking out. Ray Romano's performance, kind of the same as Sandler, like fantastic in a complimentary role.
Yeah, it'll get a Best Picture nomination. Seems pretty likely. Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime. Go check it out.
Yeah, for free. Unless, you have to pay for Prime, but for free after that. What would be number 3 on your list?
Number 3 on my list is Dunkirk from Christopher Nolan.
I have that at number 1.
Hell yeah. Man, this is, before we get into it, this is another movie that I think the common criticism that people had is just so dumb. Oh, the timeline stuff, it's kind of doesn't make sense. Why did he have to go all Nolan on it? I'm like, it's not confusing.
It's not that
confusing. 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week.
Right.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Mind blowing.
Yeah, can't keep that straight. Too hard. Yeah, man. This movie, when I think about it, I feel so much anxiety because that's how I felt the entire movie. I was a ball of anxiety basically from like the 10-minute mark on. It was crazy.
Yeah. So tense.
Yeah. Well, why did it fall to number 3 on your list? Why did you have it so high?
Yeah. I mean, for starters, Tom Hardy wears a mask again, and it's not a bad thing. As the pilot. The whole arc of his character, especially how it ends, I thought was beautiful. But yeah, so it's funny. There's been 3 movies this year about like Churchill, Darkest Hour. The other one that was 22 in my list. Gary Oldman's performance we'll be talking about come Oscar time, but that movie references the events of Dunkirk, and then Christopher Nolan's like the companion piece about the actual event of the battle and whatnot. or the evacuation round, not really battle. But I thought I mean, you have the goat Rylance just crushing it in a sweater on a boat. You have Harry Styles somehow really overachieving as an actor,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just have like British Tumblr boy A,
Yeah.
what's his name, Fionn Whitehead, right?
Yep.
But I mean, the performances are great across. Barry Keoghan
Yeah.
is George who dies, right? He's in Killing the Sacred Deer. He's another rising star. So
Mm-hmm.
the perform it's just, and Kenneth Branagh,
Yep.
fucking
Killian
mugging on
Murphy.
the on the, oh yeah, of course, Nolan favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, the performance is such a stacked cast. Of course, Nolan has the kind of pull, but you know his attention to detail with the camera. I mean, everyone should have seen his movies by now if you listen to this. But
Mm-hmm.
again, he breaks new ground. I mean, the idea of him doing a war movie it's kind of like a like a fantasy proposition, but the fact that he actually did it and gave it his own touch. I mean, the score, the 35 millimeter experience. If you saw that, I mean, everything about it's just such an experience,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just such a powerful film. And I mean, if you just want to relegate it to being a war movie, I mean, it's the best war movie since at least The Hurt Locker. Now it's in '09.
Mm-hmm.
If not better. It's quite the experience.
Yeah, and I saw a recent criticism about how there isn't enough character work in the movie, and I think that was actually the point, was that you don't get to know a lot of these characters, right? Because these characters weren't people that really mattered in like the larger scheme of things, but in terms of this battle, there were just these pieces about about this overall struggle and this desperation. I mean, for like the first hour and 30 minutes of the movie, it's just dead end after dead end after dead end until finally Mark Rylance leading those like tugboats across the channel. Yep. I mean, it's man, I really can't say enough. And like you talked about the score, the way like the way that he shot certain things, like when you hear the planes coming in, but you don't actually see them, and then you just see them all like duck their heads and like just the sheer terror in their faces. It's
in synchronization. Yeah.
Yep. It was just amazing. This movie, I think, is the one that stuck with me the most. And you said it probably best, but just as a war movie, it's probably one of the most realistic depictions of war at that time that we've had. I mean, think about like Saving Private Ryan, that like opening scene, but like for a whole movie to focus on this one battle that was like a week long, but just phenomenal. Can't say enough. What was your number 2?
Well, one last thing on Nolan is going to get a lot of nominations, but Nolan's never won Best Director, and this is kind of interesting Oscar year. We'll talk about this at a later date more as Pat, you see more Oscar movies, and we do our predictions. But I don't know if there's a true front runner for Best Director this year, despite a lot of great films. So I wonder if Nolan could perhaps finally, crack that code and get that award. We'll see. So number 2 on my list is Call Me by Your Name from Luca Guadagnino, and starring Armie Hammer and Timothée Chalamet, and spaced off of the acclaimed gay romance novel of the same name from I believe '07. And this film is getting a lot of attention, of course, for its performances, specifically Chalamet. I think Chalamet right now is my best actor pick.
Wow.
If I had to think about it today, it's between him and Gary Oldman for Darkest Hour. And Gary Oldman, not to spoil the convo at a later date, but Gary Oldman pick kind of is more of like a physical performance, and it's almost like a career achievement award because he's obviously such a great actor. Mm-hmm. But I mean, Chalamet is only 21, but it's such a moving performance, and this whole movie has really stuck with me. The past, I saw it about a week ago, and I've been thinking about it a lot, especially the end. And I saw some reviewers put it really well. It's a gay story without like the self-loathing. It's not about the coming out of the closet aspect, right. Social anxiety. It's not about that. It's about a love story in the summer in Italy, and it's such a beautiful movie. The locations are beautiful as well. It was shot in Italy. And Armie Hammer probably will miss out on a nomination, but he was very good as the foil, as the relationship, the boy to Chalamet, and man, Chalamet's performance will really stick with me a long time. It was really good. And the movie might be a little too long; it takes a little while to get going, but man, by the end, it's so powerful.
I heard there was a great scene of Army Hammer dancing, which is pretty
Yeah.
much
Oh,
in and of itself made me want to go see this movie.
yeah. I think that's actually been clipped out. You can probably find that scene already if you're really interested.
Okay.
But yeah, it takes place in the 70s or 80s. Shit, I forgot which one. But yeah, this is a song, the Psychedelic Furs song. And I've since the song's kind of stuck in my head now. I've been YouTubing it a lot. But yeah, it's a great dance scene. There's an awesome scene that's famous from the book with the peach. Don't want to spoil it. And then, and I can't forget Michael Stahlberg as Chalamet's dad. Man, that guy had a fucking year, dude. He's in Call Me by Your Name. He's in The Post, and he's in The Shape of Water, and he was also in Fargo, season 3. He's probably going to join John C. Reilly as the only actor since the 1930s to be in 3 Best Picture nominees in the same year.
John C. Reilly.
Quite the year.
I would never have guessed him to be the other.
Yeah, it was Gangs of New York, something else in Chicago, which won for John C. Reilly.
Was it Boogie Nights that year?
Yeah. No, that's a 90s movie. Right? No. Isn't it?
Yeah, it must be. Damn, I don't know. What else could that have been? That's crazy though. John C. Reilly. No, I definitely want to see. This is one of the ones that's up there on my list, along with Tania, that I really want to see. Number 2 on my list was Lady Bird.
Yep, that was number 1 for me.
Yeah, I mean, we reviewed it. Greta Gerwig's directorial debut. Saoirse Ronan, Laura Metcalf. I mean, that right there is the movie. It's this about this dynamic of this mother-daughter, Lady Bird, growing up. And I mean, I think I put this number 2 just for the fact that it made Dave Matthews relevant in 2017. Yeah. But beyond that, I mean, just really the story it tells about this teenage girl and growing up and learning herself, learning more about her mom. That ending scene where she gives her mom a phone call and it shows her like driving for the first time in Sacramento, the same way you saw her mom do throughout the entire movie. Just really moving and touching. Also the little moments, like when she confronts her ex-boyfriend about him being gay and he just falls apart.
Yep.
Who played him about? I forgot to write that down.
Lucas Hedges.
Yeah, Lucas Hedges. A fucking phenomenal performance by him. Every performance in this, I can't pick out one that I was like, that wasn't so great. Like every actor in this was fantastic. Why was the number 1 on your list?
Yeah, Lucas Hedges. He was in 3 Billboards as well, and Chalamet's in Lady Bird and Calling by Your Name. So those guys, 2 young stars. We'll see them for a long time for sure. Yeah, so this movie really moved me by the end, and it's such a pleasurable movie. I don't think there's any bad scenes in it. There's no fat on the movie at all. And I think what the reason this movie is so strong is because you didn't have to be coming up in 2002 era Sacramento or anywhere in the country to feel moved by this film. That's a little before our time. We were in high school in 2002. But it still struck me all the same. Obviously, it really hits a nostalgic chord for people that age. So Greta Gerwig's age, really. But it's also really striking a nerve for people, in their 60s, people like Laurie Metcalf, Mm-hmm. So it speaks to seemingly everyone. And I think the reason it does that is because it's such a pleasurable movie, it's such a relatable film. And the performances, of course, are great. I mean, everything we talked about has great performances, no question about that. I don't think Lady Bird's my number 1 film. I think it's just the most pleasurable experience I had this year. And depends how you want to rank your list. I mean, it's probably not the most It's not the most influential film of the year, but that's not what my list is. And I don't think it'll win Best Picture. I said this before, but the statement that Lady Bird winning Best Picture probably isn't strong enough for the Academy, given the competition. It is a pretty strong year. But that being said, I think it's just a joy to watch, and I look forward to seeing it again.
Absolutely. I know I don't get enough chances to rewatch movies, but this is one I'll definitely make time for next year. It should be noted we haven't had a chance to watch Phantom Thread or The Post when we record this. It's, we don't get screeners yet, but if anyone wants to send us screeners, hey, our DMs are open. Speaking of DMs, at Nowstalgia Pod, give us your thoughts on our list. Give us your picks for your top 10 list. At Martin Swagger and at Sheeny World Peace, respectively, for our own Twitters, where Dave leaves his reviews of all the movies he's been seeing after the fact. Any last thoughts on the year 2017 in movies?
No, I think we nailed it, man. But just lastly, I'm gonna have my whole list. I've seen 42 movies thus far. I'm gonna see Molly's Game, I think, tomorrow, and then obviously Phantom Thread and The Post. Very eager to see those. So I'll be updating my list as I see more movies throughout January. But you can see my whole list and my blurb about each movie at medium.com/Dave Martinson. So saw a lot of movies this year, most movies I've ever seen one year in the theaters or in general. So I wanted to expound about that. So when you're done sharing the pod with a friend, if you're interested, you can read about my worst movie of the year thus far. Do you have a guess what it is, Pat?
Worst movie of the year. Oh man, that you saw or that?
Yeah, that I've seen. I have a big 4 for my bad films.
It can't be Justice League.
No, Justice League is 35 of 42.
Okay. I can't think of what it would be right now.
So I saw Suburbicon and Wonder Wheel because I had Movie Pass. Those movies want to be so great, but they're really bad. 41 is Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Jack Sparrow fucking sucks now. Man, did I hate it. But my worst movie of the year is a movie that we actually were intrigued by when we saw the trailer. It came out back in, I believe, April. With Tom Hanks and Emma Watson.
Mm-hmm.
The Circle.
I see it on Amazon Prime, and I'm like, should I watch this? And I'm like, no. Like, I just can't bring myself to do it.
Honestly, it's like
and John Boyega too.
Well, he's barely in the movie. It's like a 16-year-old who thinks he's so smart was like, yo, dog, surveillance, man, they're gonna get you. And it's not smart. It's so cookie cutter. It's actually annoying because it does not respect the audience's intelligence.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I was pretty annoyed by the time watching. I was like, really? Like, as a clear Tom Hanks cash grab for sure. And I'm just sad on that Emma Watson wasted her time with it, So yeah, The Circle's the worst movie I saw this year.
Well, see, the thing is, I don't really see a ton of bad movies, I guess. I think I only until Movie Pass, I was only going to like the movies I was absolutely knew I would like or get something out of. So yeah, Movie Pass I might have a worst of the year next year too, because I'm planning to use that Movie Pass and abuse it as much as I possibly can.
Hell yeah, dog.
So yeah, again, hit us up on Twitter. But until 2018, Nowstalgia Pod signing off. I guess this is